What is going on, my friends? This is Jake of www.jgcalisthenics.co.uk, and I just want to mention that for the best guidance for starting calisthenics as a beginner, then make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss a single video of mine that I upload every Monday and Thursday, specifically for people like you, my friend. Plus, make sure to follow me both on Instagram and Facebook, as I'll link up here right now, and send me a message saying, you know, what's up? And I'll make sure to respond because I reply to each and every message and love interacting with each and every one of you, right? So really, if you feel stuck and overwhelmed right now with really how to start calisthenics the right way, then please understand that this is perfectly normal, as I certainly felt the same way myself. So, you know, in this video, I'm going to guide you over the fundamentals, the most important fundamentals, and the proper workout structure you need to make the most progress when starting calisthenics as a beginner. Does that sound like a plan? All right, so starting out, we're going to talk about the 3 most important form cues, right, when it comes to bodyweight and calisthenics exercises. So really the first cue you want to make sure that you have a good understanding of is the posterior pelvic tilt. And so a posterior pelvic tilt is simply where you tilt the pelvis backwards and pull the lumbar spine flat, right? Glutes engaged, core engaged, because especially in the upper body exercise of calisthenics, this is basically the postural cue that you're going to take on board when doing your push-ups and any other pull-up exercise beyond the upper body exercises of calisthenics, right? The second form cue, especially once again in the upper body, is to keep the elbows tucked in, because when you keep the elbows tucked in, both with pushing and pulling, you keep the shoulders in a strong and a healthy position. However, if you let the elbows flare out and let the shoulders internally rotate, you can put a lot of strain on the rotator cuff, and is one of the reasons why a lot of people will suffer from rotator cuff strains and rotator cuff tears within bodyweight and calisthenics exercises. It's not the exercise that is to blame, it's the approach that is more at fault. Do you see what I mean? So make sure to keep the elbows tucked in so you can make gains without injuries, right? And now the third point is the understanding of the scapula, right? So the scapula, there's 4 main functions, right? That is simply, you know, elevating the scapula, depressing the scapula, retracting the scapula, and protracting the scapula. So in a pull-up, as an example, I may tell you to, before pulling up from the bar, you want to retract and depress the scapula. And what I mean by that is you want to think and actually pull the shoulder blades, the scapula, down into depression and pull them back into retraction. Does that make sense? Understanding how the scapula works exactly will allow you to perform each upper body exercise optimally with correct form without being confused of, you know, what exactly to do and what, you know, a coach, someone online, or even a workout program may say about the scapula, because now you know exactly how the scapula works, right? So as we've covered the main form cues, right, the second point I want to cover is progression, right? Because obviously in order to actually build bigger and stronger muscles, we've got to make progress over time, right, with bodyweight and calisthenics. So what we also want to consider is we pick the exercise that is the correct intensity for our given strength level. So we do this by either selecting a progression of a harder exercise or a regression to make the exercise easy if a given progression is too hard. Does that make sense? So if we take the regular push-up as an example, right, if the exercise is too hard, we can regress the exercise by doing an easier variation, such as an incline push-up, right? But then over time, if push-ups get too easy, we want to progress the exercise by making it harder. And one of the many exercises we can do in that case is an exercise like the pseudo planche push-up, which will help us prepare for the planche itself. Do you see what I mean? Because when it comes to progressing in our workouts, when it comes to weights, dumbbells and barbells, it's very simple, of course. Over time, to get stronger, we add more weight, right? But with body weight, right, instead of using weights to increase the intensity, we manipulate our body weight to increase the intensity. And so we do that by lifting a large proportion of our body weight over time. And we do this by decreasing leverage by doing harder variations as we get stronger. Does that make sense? And so for this to make more sense, this moves on to point number 3 I want to cover, which is progressive overload, right? And so progressive overload, which ties into progression, is simply gradually increasing the workload we place on our muscles over time. Because at the end of the day, if we do the same thing over and over again, our muscles have no reason to get bigger or stronger, right? Whereas when we actually force a greater stimulus and more adaptation to our body as a whole, right, then during recovery, then our muscles are kind of like, yo, this is hard. We've got to get stronger for the next workout. So it does that by preparing bigger and stronger muscle tissues. Does that make sense? So as a prime example of this, as going back to before with push-ups, an easy progression would be the incline push-ups, right? And so a progressive overload element of this would be going from incline push-ups to regular push-ups as a whole. And then to progress the push-up, right, we would go to something like the pseudo planche push-up. And then once we can do pseudo planche push-ups, we can maybe work towards tucked planche push-ups. You see what I mean? And so once again, instead of adding weight to to the exercises, right, we manipulate our body weight to increase the intensity instead. So when it comes to progressive overload with calisthenics, there's 5 main elements that we can use to make any bodyweight exercise either harder or easier, right? But here we're talking more about progression, right? And so the first one you can do is by increasing reps over time, or increasing sets, reducing rest time, increasing exercise intensity, or adjusting the rep tempo. To ensure you're actually making progress in your workouts, make sure, of course, you actually have a workout log, so you're tracking your workouts, and so you know that when you go into each and every workout, you can look at your previous workout and see what you need to beat right now to make progress over time and get stronger. And for more detail on this, I have a video on progressive overload in full, which you can check out in this card right here, by the way. And also comment down below, what I'd love to know is what got you into calisthenics in the first place? What made you start calisthenics and bodyweight training? Comment down below, I'd love to know. And so as we've covered really the main fundamentals of bodyweight and calisthenics and the principles of it, right? You may watch this video and be like, okay, Jake, that's great, but how many sets and reps should I do? How long should I be resting and such, right? And so really, as a good rule of thumb, 1 to 5 reps, if you're working in that range, will primarily be focusing on strength. 6 to 15 reps will primarily be focused on muscle hypertrophy. And anything beyond 15 reps is going to be more focused on endurance. However, don't look at this so black and white, because obviously, you know, the results you ultimately gain will depend on what you're training for and how fast you're actually performing each repetition, right? Because performing 5 super fast pull-ups is going to be a completely different response to doing 5 slow controlled pull-ups. You see what I mean? And so primarily when we're looking at bodyweight strength training, of course, endurance is a great goal to have. Most of you watching this video have probably got the goal of, you know, either building muscle, getting stronger, or losing body fat, right? So when we look at strength and muscle hypertrophy, right? Obviously, if we're doing less reps for strength, we'll need more volume, i.e. more sets, to create a sufficient stimulus for our muscles to grow stronger, right? So really, as a good rule of thumb, of course, it's going to vary from person to person, workout to workout, etc. But as a good rule of thumb, if you're doing strength, a good rule of thumb would be 3 to 5 sets, right? And then muscle hypertrophy would be 2 to 4 sets, right? If you're really overwhelmed, you don't know what to do, just start with 3 sets, right? You can't go wrong with 3 sets. And so as we've discussed a lot about reps, what's also, you know, actually arguably equally important is how we perform each repetition, which is where rep tempo comes into play. So usually in the fitness and calisthenics industry as a whole, you know, the 4-digit principle is usually what's most advocated, and I'll outline here exactly what those 4 digits mean, because really, if you make just one slight tweak to the 4-digit rep tempo, that will ultimately increase or decrease the intensity significantly, depending on what exercise you're doing, right? And so really, I'd say when starting calisthenics, the most basic of exercises, a good rule of thumb to avoid from just getting overwhelmed with all the different rep tempos you can use is just try 2 seconds down and then a 1 second concentric, right? Simple as that. That will allow you to actually gain that mind muscle connection of, you know, activating the certain muscles you want to work, while also allowing you to get the adequate time under tension to create a sufficient stimulus for your muscles to grow bigger and stronger over time, right? And so really, when it comes to rest, you can rest as short as 60 seconds or even rest as long as 180 seconds, depending on the intensity of the exercise, right? Just make sure that you don't mistake fatigue for actual progression, right? Because at the end of the day, your results with calisthenics and bodyweight training is going to be dependent on, you know, the actual strength you're gaining over time. That's personally why I don't advocate the likes of circuit workouts where you just fatigue, because it will actually impact how much stronger you can get in that workout as a whole. Whereas when you give yourself adequate rest, you'll have way more energy to give each set and rep you've got in the tank, so you can make the most gains possible. Does that make sense? And so when it comes to starting calisthenics as a beginner, really, I advocate, as a good rule of thumb, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know I always talk about full body 3 times a week on non-consecutive days, such as Monday, Wednesday, Friday, simply because it allows you to maximize muscle protein synthesis and muscle recovery. So really, if you're optimizing, you know, the rate of muscle growth as well as, you know, the recovery process, which is where your muscles actually grow bigger and stronger, that's the win-win, right? You don't need to blast yourself 6 times a week. You always tell yourself you're making more progress because you're working harder, because really the main results come by working smarter as a whole, right? So what I'll do right here is I'll lay out a template or an example of what a full body routine may look like for you as starting calisthenics, so you can take that routine, cherish it, and try it out yourself. And so now you know exactly, you know, the actual main fundamentals and principles for starting calisthenics, which is awesome. But what about an actual periodized workout plan and a nutrition guide so you can actually use that to make the most progress possible in your calisthenics journey, right? Well, that's exactly why I have a free beginner calisthenics program over my website, which you can download, which will be available for you to download in the description below to pick up your free ebook as a whole, right? And also, if you enjoyed this video and you found you gained a lot of value within this video, then make sure to screenshot this video right now. then send me a DM via either Facebook or Instagram. I'll link my social accounts somewhere in the screen right here, and tell me what you found most helpful in this video. I'd love to know. I love interacting with each and every one of you, and I make sure to respond to each comment and every message, right, as soon as I possibly can, right? And again, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give this video a thumbs up so I know what videos to make in the future for you, right? And comment down below what you found most helpful and gained most as a whole within this video. I'd love to know. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with a friend who you feel would benefit from making some gains when starting calisthenics as a beginner. And as that is enough for me today, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, my friend, as a crew member of the Gains Training Express. Keep moving forward. I'll see you